Hi, Mom. What do you think? Look at my shoes. Aren't they great?
My God, you look like a gangster.
Goodfellas is quite simply put one of the greatest films of all time. In this video we're going to take a deep dive into the legacy of the movie, how it came about and what makes it still such an enduring crime classic to this day. If you're new to this channel, please do click subscribe and that notification bell so you don't miss more of my analysis and retrospectives on classic and cult films, and check some of the links below in the description to see how you can support the channel further. After his incredible first crime film Mean Streets, Martin Scorsese actually had no intention to go back to the mob genre until he saw a review of Nicholas Pileggi's book Wiseguy, which he read while directing The Colour of Money in 1986. Scorsese called the book the most honest portrayal of gangsters he had ever read. He then decided his intention for Goodfellas was to create, in his words, almost a 2.5-hour trailer focused on exhilaration and unpredictability in an attempt to channel the feelings of why people were attracted to the gangster lifestyle.
This one was interesting in that Henry Hill, his recollections or his stories, whatever you want to call this incredible marathon narrative that Nick Pileggi put together with all these tapes that he had such a wonderful honesty about it and a really accurate look at the spirit of the lifestyle.
Scorsese worked closely with Pileggi on the screenplay and ended up taking 12 drafts to reach the perfect script. Scorsese convinced Pileggi that the film did not need to follow a traditional narrative structure, and this ended up being one of the signature elements of the movie. Goodfellas was originally going to be titled Wiseguy, the same as the book, but they decided to change the title because two projects came out in the meantime, Brian De Palma's Wiseguys and the 1987 TV series Wiseguy. As soon as Robert De Niro signed on to play veteran gangster Jimmy Conway, Scorsese was able to secure the money to make the film. De Niro beat out his future screen icon friend Al Pacino for the part of Jimmy, with John Malkovich also in the running.
You know, the gangster has always been sort of, in some subtle way, glamorized because they defy authority and sort of it's like a release valve for people to kind of see what's you know, someone who does defy, whether it be a Robin Hood type character or anyone who sort of doesn't go by the system.
Young actor Ray Liotta was a big fan of Pileggi's book and auditions for the role of Henry Hill in 1988. Liotta competed with some pretty big names for the role, with Sean Penn, Alec Baldwin, Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise's names in the mix. However, he pushed hard for the job despite Warner Brothers wanting a well-known actor. Scorsese decided to cast him ultimately based on his performance in the movie Something Wild from 1986, describing him as full of explosive energy.
Bullshit. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit! Get off in there! You shut the fuck up, goddammit! Why are you talking to us? Come on! Take your arm and shoot on your goddamn...
Joe Pesci was cast as the volatile Tommy DeVito, real name Tommy DeSimone, and the actor made a point of somehow trying to relate to this violent gangster, saying he tried as hard as he could, but found it very hard to justify the terrible actions that he commits in the movie. However, Pesci claimed all he could do was strongly force himself to feel how Tommy did, despite how despicable, and that's how he came out with such a genuine performance. Pesci's performance received unanimous praise, and perhaps from one person whose opinion mattered the most, with the real-life Henry Hill stating that his portrayal of Tommy was 99% accurate, with the only exception being that the real Tommy was massively built.
How the fuck am I funny? What the fuck is so funny about me? Tell me what's funny.
Improvisation was a big part of Pesci's performance and Goodfellas in general. A famous scene in which Tommy tells a funny story and then ends up suddenly threatening Henry was made almost entirely from improvisation between Pesci and Liotta. The idea is based on an actual event Pesci experienced when working as a waiter, when he himself called a mobster funny, but they took it the wrong way. Scorsese recorded about 5 takes of the actor's improv. He then rewrote some of it and inserted it into the script. Paul Sorvino was cast as Paulie Cicero, and like Joe Pesci, he said he found it very challenging to find that level of coldness of these gangsters because it was completely against his nature. It does make you think about how difficult it is for actors to tap into a completely alien lifestyle and worldview that goes against everything they stand for. I really think that makes you respect the performances even more. Madonna was considered for the role of Karen Hill, with the part eventually going to Lorraine Bracco. Bracco decided she didn't want to meet the real Karen, preferring to create the role naturally based on the knowledge she had, so it didn't come across as an impersonation, but more natural. This was also the case with Ray Liotta and the real Henry Hill, as he and the cast did not meet him until a few weeks before the film's premiere. Goodfellas became Scorsese's most expensive film at that point on a budget of $25 million, although this was still modest for Hollywood standards. When it came to the violence in the movie, Scorsese was determined to retain a sense of realism, saying he wanted the violence to appear in the film as almost incidental, cold, unfeeling and horrible.
It's extremely exhilarating working with him because he's so intense and tremendous amount of humor. Also tremendous mood swings, very emotional, can be sometimes extremely depressed or worried, but I enjoy that about him. It's sort of like living with a volcano.
Goodfellas was previewed in California, and believe it or not, a lot of audiences were annoyed and frustrated by the sequence in which Henry is running around to tie up all his affairs at the end, and things are rapidly becoming out of control, as he is a drug-addled mess. Scorsese said his intention with the scene was in fact to agitate the audience, to capture the drug-fueled chaos that Henry was engaged in and convey a sense of unpredictability. One of the scenes that did go over very well for the test audiences was Joe Pesci's Improv Do I Amuse You scene, which I mentioned earlier, which confirmed for Scorsese that his approach was going to work. Scorsese believed the soundtrack was a gigantic part of what was going to make Goodfellas stand out. Instead of inserting an actual score, Scorsese chose songs that he felt commented on or fit the scene and the characters. This approach went on to be adopted by so many filmmakers such as Quentin Tarantino years later, and this idea of adding songs just at the right time really elevates the personality of the film. Songs such as the Rolling Stones' Gimme Shelter when Henry is getting up to his drug-fueled antics adds a certain rebellious feeling, and when the gangsters are beating someone to death, the song Atlantis by Donovan creates a very morbid and dramatic feeling. Using the song Then He Kissed Me by the Crystals, as Henry seduces Lorraine and takes her on a special VIP route to her seat, creates a real extravagant and romantic feeling that really fits the wonderful camera techniques used in that scene. Then when bodies are being discovered all over the city near the end of the film, Scorsese selects Layla by Derek and the Dominos, a pleasant piano melody, and he uses that instead of having a sad looming song. A somewhat upbeat tune kind of hits you harder as it becomes very jarring and memorable. Goodfellas premiered at the 47th Venice International Film Festival, and Scorsese was awarded the Silver Lion Best Director trophy. The movie was then given its wide release on September 21st, 1990, and grossed $6.3 million in its opening weekend, topping the box office. By the end of its run, it went on to make $47.1 million worldwide on its budget of $25 million. The picture did incredibly well with critics, with famous beloved movie critic team Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert each giving it a full 4 stars and naming it the best film of 1990.
It's a fascinating movie. It's a great American film.
Okay, I've seen it twice. I'm going back lots more times, and what I'll go back for is small things, editing scenes, the way he jumps in on dialogue, the way there's that whole sequence about when the Ray Liotta character gets into drugs and it's shot in a whole different fashion because he's high on drugs, and Scorsese, the artist, wants to show us that. It's very
and you could
special
also,
filmmaking.
Vincent Canby of the New York Times praised the casting of the film and the direction, saying nothing about Goodfellas is ever superfluous. Richard Corliss wrote for Time magazine that Goodfellas offered the fastest, sharpest 2.5-hour ride in film history to date. Strangely, the film did not storm home at the Academy Awards. It was nominated for Best Picture, Director, Supporting Actress, Screenplay and Editing, but only walked away with Best Supporting Actor for Joe Pesci. Yeah, I kind of think Scorsese was robbed that night, and believe it or not, Goodfellas also didn't win anything at the Golden Globes. What were they thinking? But thankfully it walked away with 3 awards at the British Film Academy, winning Best Director, Best Film and Best Screenplay. Us Brits knew the truth, didn't we? Goodfellas has such a stunning immediacy right from the get-go. It just hooks you from that staggering opening scene and never lets go. Scorsese refuses to ease you in slowly. You're just immediately thrown into the deep end of what these gangsters do on a nightly basis, and we witness our characters stabbing someone in the back of a car right away. And to make it even more jarring, this happens after we hear this victim banging on the trunk of the car, so he wasn't dead when he was thrown in it, but our characters are now going to make sure. This is an insane way to start a movie. We then of course get that incredibly memorable opening voiceover from Ray Liotta.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
I mean, who couldn't be enthralled after that? We've opened with a stabbing and a crazy situation, and then we hear our main character say he always wanted to do this. It's mental. You cannot look away from the film from its opening second. That freeze frame of Ray Liotta has become iconic, and those shots are all over Goodfellas. Really trying to capture a moment like a photograph, a facial expression, a gesture, a specific look with a certain intent. The director wants them to stand out and linger, and it just makes the film so unique and memorable. Ray Liotta's performance is superb, full of quiet confidence as he is the mediator. He enjoys this life and is usually the voice of reason. However, just like the other gangsters, there's a monster hiding inside, it's just quite deep down. Great example of Henry being just as vicious as the other gangsters is a scene in which his girlfriend and future wife Karen comes to him and tells him that one of her neighbours tried to touch her. Henry goes wild and we get to see how he is just as dangerous as the others, and Liotta is spectacular in this moment. He just shifts from the exciting young cheerful gangster into something else. For me, this is the moment when Ray Liotta really climbs his way up to being just as good as De Niro and Pesci in the film. He just has this incredible visceral expression on his face. He literally bashes the guy's face in. He pulverizes him, then points a gun at his friend. I mean, this moment is just pure rage. Every gangster in Goodfellas can turn, they just have different triggers. And it's clear Henry's was Karen. I mean, we've just spent the film watching Henry be a guy who just wants to have fun, and then we suddenly see this vicious animal come out. The movie again leaves us stunned and thrown for a loop. Goodfellas continually does this. Every time you think you've seen it all, Scorsese throws something else at you that just leaves you dizzy and overwhelmed. However, I think it's a deliberate choice by Scorsese to only unleash Henry's monster in moments where it could actually be justified. I mean, this guy assaulted his girlfriend. The guy kinda deserved it in a way. So we are still able to somewhat like Henry throughout the film, as he never does anything truly inhuman like his friends. We're left conflicted because of course Henry stands by and watches things happen, so he's just as guilty. But as a person, Henry does not seem to have pure evil underneath the surface. He's just a man who enjoys the fact he can have the freedom to lash out and do what he wants to people who sometimes basically deserve it. But again, the degree in which he'll engage in violence towards them might be questionable, so you're left on the edge with Henry. He's likeable, but deep down we know he's morally wrong. But this is a movie full of grey areas, so we're able to separate Henry from his friends, I suppose on the scale of gangster atrocities. Robert De Niro is truly stunning as Jimmy Conway. In one moment, he just looks like your best friend, the warmest guy on earth, so kind and so cheery. De Niro just has so much passion to his performance.
You did it right. You told them nothing and they got nothing.
I thought you'd be mad.
Man, I'm not mad. I'm proud of you. You took your first pinch like a man and you learned the two greatest things in life.
What?
Look at me. Never rat on your friends. And always keep your mouth shut.
Jimmy is like a father figure to Henry. Of course, when Henry grows up, there's still that father-son bond, but he becomes part of the gang, best friends with Jimmy. But you just get the feeling that Jimmy will not tolerate anyone at any time going off-road in anything that he doesn't want them to do. Basically like Henry's father, if his father was at the drop of a hat, willing to kill him. But in the moments where they're getting along, they seem like the best of friends. This is the strange thing about this life. You're watching it and there just seems like such a close-knit friendship. But there's an understanding within the world, and Jimmy's completely honest about it, so you can't say he's not, that it can turn at any point. You're living on the edge always. But really everyone is just fighting to balance the scales alongside Joe Pesci's Tommy. Everyone's performance is basically being dictated by how insane he is. Obviously that incredible scene I mentioned earlier, the improv moment, the do I amuse you moment, it's one of the greatest pieces of improv acting of all time. It's still incredible today because it's so convincing, and Pesci is just electric, and the flip of the switch when we see Tommy go from laughing to menacing is just chilling.
Tommy, no, you got it all wrong.
Oh, Anthony. He's a big boy. He knows what he said. What'd you say?
You're right.
Funny how? What?
Just, you know, you're funny.
You mean, well, let me understand this, because maybe it's me, I'm a little fucked up, maybe. But I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you? I make you laugh? I'm here to fucking amuse you? What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
That moment of silence when Tommy suddenly calls out Henry just fills you with this feeling of how volatile and dangerous this guy can be at the drop of a hat. And you wonder if Henry wasn't his friend, would he actually be dead? Tommy is dangerous, but he is, yeah, I'll say it, a funny guy. Like, you like listening to him. He has these little moments where he's charming, he's hilarious, and he makes the morbid funny. So he's somewhat likeable in moments, but he just represents that danger that lurks around every corner in the gangster life, and how one comment, one example of crossed wires can kill you. Simple as that. But at the same time, he has you laughing along and enjoying watching him despite being a really terrible person. Of course, there's several incredibly cold and horrible scenes of visceral aggression when Tommy firstly shoots a young bartender called Spider in the foot because he took too long to get him a drink. And then a few days later, when he has a cast and answers back to Tommy,
You fucking bullshitter, you. Tell the truth, you're looking for sympathy. Is that it, sweetie?
Why don't you go fuck yourself, Tommy?
That's fucking right. I don't believe what I just heard. Hey, Spider, here. Hey, this is for you. Attaboy. I got respect for this. He's got a lot of fucking balls. Tom, you gonna let him get away with that? You gonna let this fucking punk get away with that? What's the matter with you? What's the world coming to?
What the fucking world is coming to? How do you like that? How's that, all right?
What's the fucking matter with you?
What's the world coming
What
to?
is the fucking matter with you? What are you, stupid or what? No, Tommy, I'm kidding with you. What the fuck are you doing? Are you a fucking sick maniac?
I don't know if you're kidding. What do you mean you're kidding? You're breaking my fucking balls?
I'm fucking kidding with you. You fucking shoot the guy?
it's ridiculously vile. It's one of the most evil and sadistic things I've ever seen on film, but again, because of Pesci's performance, because of the dialogue, because of Scorsese's direction, and the build-up, it's somehow really entertaining to see Tommy do this. I mean, we all know that Scorsese is the OG at forcing us to watch sick nutcases and enjoy it. It's almost like every gangster in this film is on a different level up from each other. Like Henry's somewhat of a regular guy, but he's still dangerous, and then Jimmy's the next step up from him, pretty mental but has some standards, and then you get Tommy, who's just something else. There's like a tier list of gangsters. And then you got Paulie at the top, who's just trying to control these guys like little kids, because Paulie is the veteran gangster who's now very old and just wants to keep things in line and under control. So he feels like the granddad. If Jimmy is Henry's father, Paulie is the granddad, and he just can't control these crazy out of control kids. Scorsese's wonderful direction is of course dominating Goodfellas. That nightclub long tracking shot, another scene I absolutely adore. It's ingrained in my mind, and whenever I watch Goodfellas I end up feeling exactly how I did when I first saw it. It's magical. Henry leads Karen into the restaurant, but they are able to skip the queue as he walks her through the bottom entrance and through the kitchen as the wonderful song Kiss Me by the Crystals plays. Delivers it all through a glorious POV tracking shot, and the whole thing just creates this feeling of celebrity and swagger. We are seeing the best part of the life Henry lives, and Karen is seduced by it. Believe it or not, this sequence actually came from necessity due to a practical problem. Filmmakers could not actually get permission to go in the short way, so this forced them to go around the back. Scorsese took advantage of this and shot this scene in one unbroken chain, managing to symbolise Henry's status as well as the lifestyle overwhelming Karen. It's a mesmerising sequence, and you're left dizzy by the end of it. You feel exactly how Karen does, because you're also caught up in Henry's charm and the fact that he knows everyone. They all love him, he just has this special access that regular people do not. Another scene I want to talk about is where Henry, Jimmy and Tommy encounter a veteran gangster from Tommy's past, and this gangster starts laying into Tommy because he knew him when he was young before he became the man he is. And this moment just shows exactly how quickly things can turn and flip and anything can happen. It shows the unpredictability and craziness of the life. You can be having a drink, enjoying yourself, and then the wrong thing gets said and a few seconds later you're dead. I love how in this scene you actually see some genuine shock on Henry's face. Even he's surprised it went this far this quickly. Jimmy jumps in to join Tommy, and it's almost like he can't resist getting violent. You can tell these men get a real thrill out of murder. They spend most of their time like, oh, let's avoid things kicking off, but when it's been a while, it's like, oh shucks, let's just kill someone, we haven't done that for a while. It's just such electricity to the scene. I love the music coming in, the brutality, the visceral nature of the attack. Goodfellas is full of people trying to justify bad actions to themselves. Henry's voiceover is continually painting what he's doing as the only way, or the only smart way. Slowly but surely, anything becomes acceptable, and Henry and his friends basically lose their humanity. The movie is about the fragility of the male ego, the desire to grab things, to gain things, to step over people, and justifying that to yourself. When Henry says those working regular jobs are dead, we can see how he is talking himself into this all being okay. Because the regular system is hard to be in, Henry steps outside of it and says if he wanted something, it's only a phone call away. If he wanted storage space, if he wanted good food, these things would take a very long time for a very regular person to get, but they are a phone call away for Henry. And this is what makes this life so enticing and seductive to someone who might not be pure evil deep down. And that's what's fascinating. When you watch this film, you see people who probably started off life not evil. They were just trying to get a few extra things in life by doing some immorality. But as Scorsese always shows in his gangster films, the life may be seductive, but it's never the answer.
Ultimately, it's an empty life that they lead, a shockingly empty one that's just a life of destruction and not construction.
It's always a ticking time bomb waiting to go off, because once these characters have jumped headfirst into it, they get sloppy, they get too carefree, too power hungry. They get so obsessed and out of control that the life eats them up. All the way through, Henry keeps trying to keep things running smoothly, but then even he can't resist the thrill of taking risks. And he takes several that end up nearly killing him. It's a life you think you have control of, but really it's a life just waiting to pick you off. All our characters end up lonely because at least in the real world, with all its flaws, you can hold on to your friends and a sense that someone won't possibly kill you every 5 seconds. As the bodies start to pile up at the end of the film, we get this sense that everything has collapsed. Like I'm saying, it was never worth it. It's all now bearing down the weight of the terrible decisions these characters have made. As I mentioned earlier, Scorsese uses very memorable but also upbeat piano music with the song Layla by Derek and the Dominoes, as he shows us these sharp visuals of the dead, and the music suddenly achieves a tragic effect despite nothing about the sound of it having changed. Scorsese has an uncanny ability to pretty much make any piece of music achieve the effect he wants. These shots are just forever ingrained in my mind and represent the doom and the nihilism of life in the mob, with the meat truck sequence being perhaps the most powerful. The camera patiently floats towards the meat truck, inviting us in gently, with of course that piano music playing, which should be happy, but instead ends up quite haunting. We are taken inside the van and put face to face with one of the gangsters, who has been hung up and frozen. It's such a powerful and uncompromising moment as we realise without a doubt no one is safe and there really are no limits to what these men will do to each other. It becomes completely clear that this world they've created for themselves was never an escape. Instead it was a death sentence. Let's talk about one more famous scene. It's the scene which caught everyone off guard when they first saw it, in which Henry spends one of his last days as a gangster trying to wrap everything up, despite being pursued by the police. It's one of the best depictions of being on drugs of all time, and many films have gone on to try and create the primal effect of it. It's just so jittery, unpredictable and spontaneous. It works so well because Henry genuinely believes he's still in control. His voiceover is clear on what he wants to do, but it's clear to us his plans are ludicrous, as he set himself so many tasks to complete, and at the same time his life as a free man is teetering on the edge of a cliff. and he's high off his face on drugs. It shows the deluded nature of people on drugs living this life. He honestly thinks he has the right to drive around the city in broad daylight, doing risky deals with no repercussions. The editing is fantastic. There's just such an urgency to the camera work, and it's so disorientating and confusing. And that's by design. We're left wondering what is going to fall apart first. So many little scenarios are set up that could get Henry arrested. We're just waiting for it to happen. The music is fantastic. The gritty rock soundtrack creates a sense of rebellion to what Scorsese's doing with the scene. As we know, this was too much for some people, but he was determined to see it through because he knew this rock and roll energy was the right way to convey Henry's crazy actions. Liotta's performance is great. He looks completely out to lunch, and he communicates Henry's paranoia so well with his stressed reactions to the pressure of the situation, as well as the police helicopter following him. Instead of realising that this is a sign that he should stop what he's doing and rethink his plans, Henry can't help but go ahead with it because he's so off his face and he's so much out of control and lost in ego, delusion and addiction to chaos that he still truly believes to his core, despite the fact that he's being followed, that he will never actually end up busted. This film is almost perfect. It's just fantastic from minute one. Whether you want to talk about the incredible performances, the stunning directional choices, the themes, all of this stuff, you could talk about it for days. I could go on and on. Goodfellas changed cinema and the world forever. It's one of those movies which is ingrained in pop culture, and it's surrounded by regular viewers, not just film buffs, even though it's a film buff's dream, but it crossed that path into being beloved by all. It's an incredibly honest, impactful, deep and super entertaining piece of work, which to this day still fascinates me whenever I watch it, and it will endure going forward. It's a moment in time movie. Thanks for watching. Please let me know what you think of Goodfellas in the comments below, and please consider subscribing for more analysis and retrospectives on classic and cult films, and I will see you guys in the next video.